What if I told you there was once a man who could hold conversations in 40 different languages without Google Translate, without language apps, without even leaving his home country? What if I told you another person's brain was so remarkable that scientists literally preserved it after his death to study how someone could master 68 languages? These aren't myths or exaggerations. These are real people who achieved something that seems almost superhuman. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. How did they do it? And what can we learn from their methods? A polyglot by definition is someone who speaks multiple languages fluently. But the people we're talking about today go so far beyond that simple definition. These are individuals who didn't just learn languages, they absorbed them, lived them, and made them part of their identity. What's fascinating is that most of them achieved these incredible feats long after modern learning methods existed. No apps, no structured courses, no YouTube tutorials, just pure immersion and what we now understand as natural language acquisition. If you're curious about how these principles could transform your own language learning, I've put together a free guide that breaks down the science behind rapid language acquisition. You can grab it in the link in the description. Let's start with Giuseppe Mezzofanti, an Italian cardinal from the 1800s who might be the most legendary polyglot in history. Mezzofanti reportedly spoke 30 to 40 languages fluently, with some claims reaching over 70 languages. What's remarkable wasn't just the number, it was how he acquired them. He would spend hours talking with visitors to Rome, completely immersing himself in conversation after conversation. Foreign diplomats, travelers, and scholars would seek him out just to test his abilities, and he'd switch between languages mid-conversation without missing a beat. Then there's Emil Krebs, a German diplomat who mastered 68 languages and had working knowledge of over 100. Krebs was so extraordinary that when he died in 1930, scientists actually preserved his brain just to study it. Recent neuroscience research on his preserved brain tissue revealed enlarged areas responsible for language processing, suggesting his incredible abilities actually changed his brain's structure. Harold Williams offers perhaps the most practical example. This New Zealand journalist used his 58 languages actively as a war correspondent during World War I. He'd interview Russian generals in Russian, French politicians in French, and German officials in German, all in the same week. Unlike academic polyglots, Williams proved that massive language abilities could be incredibly practical and career-changing. So here's what's fascinated me about all of these polyglots. They didn't study languages the way we typically think of studying. They lived them. There's a pattern that we can call the immersion spiral. They'd find ways to be completely surrounded by the language, understanding meaning through context rather than translation, and gradually building fluency through natural conversation and comprehensible input. They weren't memorizing verb tables. They were absorbing the rhythm, flow, and natural patterns of each language they spoke. What strikes me the most about these legendary polyglots is that they achieved their abilities by tapping into the same natural language acquisition processes we all used as children. They created environments where they could understand messages in the target language, gradually building competence through comprehension rather than conscious study. This suggests that the human's brain capacity for language isn't limited by some magical number. It's limited by our methods and our environment. But here's a twist that might totally change your perspective. Most of these polyglots couldn't actually explain how they learned their languages. When asked about their methods, they'd often give vague answers about just picking it up or listening and talking. What seemed like superhuman talent was actually their unconscious discovery of what modern linguists now call comprehensible input. The idea that we acquire language by understanding messages, not by studying language. Even more surprising? Ziad Farza, a modern polyglot who claims fluency in 58 languages, has been called controversial precisely because some of his abilities don't hold up under formal testing. This suggests that even among legendary polyglots, there's a spectrum of what fluency means, and perhaps the real magic isn't in perfect grammar, but in the confidence to communicate and to understand. These legendary polyglots weren't born with magical language genes. They simply discovered methods that worked with their brain's natural language acquisition process rather than against it. The next time you feel frustrated with your language learning progress, remember that you have the same brain architecture that followed Mezzofanti to charm visitors in 40 languages. The difference isn't in your capacity, it's in your approach. If you're ready to discover how these time-tested principles can help you in your language learning journey, then take a look at the link in the description because that's exactly where I can personally help you out. And speaking of natural language learning methods, you absolutely want to watch the video right here because here is where I break down some stuff that will probably propel you a lot faster than you ever expected. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.